I call the meeting to order. Please join me, stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tom is unavailable tonight. I will be your acting mayor. I think it's worth noting it was 20 degrees the last time, and he was mayor, and now I'm mayor, and it's 80, so you're welcome. Our commission, could I get I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do we need a roll call?
No, we actually don't.
We've recorded.
Okay.
That's when we're on Zoom.
Okay, I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And his was a second. I made the motion.
I just wanted to clarify, there were a couple additional pieces of paper on the dais for council. We had the copies of the minutes, the bond sale summary, job descriptions, the cropland report, and I would like to remove the Hackmore closed session just due to not having, remove that from the agenda based on the updates that we have.
You need a motion.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to make a change to put the cropland. Did you just say that?
I didn't, I just noted that we do have the cropland
Yes.
item on there, so.
I was going to move the crop. Yes. I was going to move the cropland bid results to consent agenda. That's all I have for amendments. Now,
Second that.
okay. So now I will make, I got to pull back my motion, don't I?
Or we could do friendly.
We can do
amendments.
I'm going to, friendly amendment to approve agenda with the cropland in it
And the removal of 12A.
and the removal of 12A.
A second.
I agree.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Commission reps tonight, Tom Anderson and Mark. Mark was there earlier and he left. The one thing that he was in charge of was on consent, and that's good. Before the presentation from Commissioner Anderson's office, I would like to open the floor to open forum. Is there anyone that wishes to speak?
Anyone in the audience can come to the podium and state your name and address. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 if you're on a phone, or you can press reactions and raise your hand if you're on an electronic device, and we can recognize you. Mayor and council, at this time, no one is raising their hand.
Okay. Do we need to close the open forum?
No.
Okay.
Or we don't have a formal motion to close.
Okay. Item 6A, Commissioner Anderson's office. I welcome Clara, who is here in his absence.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. As you can see, I'm not Commissioner Anderson. If you know what he looks like, I think there's going to be a photo of him up there, though. I'm really sorry that he can't be here tonight, so you are stuck with me. So for those of you who don't know Commissioner Anderson, he has been in office for about 2 years now. This slide has a little bit of information about him. Since he's taken office, his priorities have included investing in infrastructure, broadband expansion, better access to mental health services, and supporting the veteran community.
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
Why is he not here?
He has a family commitment.
Okay.
He did offer, though, that he does want to meet with you. So if there's anyone who wants to meet one-on-one or as a group, he would be happy to do so, and I can help get that scheduled.
Okay. When were we made known that he wasn't going to be able to be here? Do you know?
Just this week.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay.
All right. So on the next slide, we'll be touching a little bit on the broadband that Hennepin County has been working on. Fabulous. All right, so since taking office, the county has allocated about $10 million to ensure that every household in Hennepin County has access to reliable, affordable broadband services. He's been working closely with our Hennepin County Office of Broadband and Digital Inclusion, as well as service providers, to leverage public and private dollars to expand access to homes in District 7. Next slide, please.
May I ask how much of that money is going towards Corcoran?
That is a really good question. Can I circle back with you on that?
Please do.
Yes. One moment, I'll take a note here.
And then if I can
Yeah.
ask on to that, are we still on track to complete broadband in Corcoran within the year from when everything was done?
We are working on getting the broadband grant agreement completed with our group, with the group at Comcast. Our attorneys have been going back and forth on the agreement, but I anticipate that with everything moving forward, if it continues to move on track, we'll have that agreement on April 27th, and then have that available to start here as soon as roads or road restrictions and permitting can take place. It might take a bit of time to do the permitting for it because there are big sections, but we're working towards it.
But no end date?
No end date. They wanted to start, we met with them about a month ago. And so we need to get the agreement in place, and then the permitting needs to be completed.
Yeah, I think they were hopeful that it could all be completed yet this year, but it may,
Okay,
some may fall into
thank you.
first half of next year.
Thanks. Sorry about that.
That's okay. All right, the next big project that Commissioner Anderson's been working on, I know that 610 is not in the district, but it does, are in Corcoran, but it is in District 7, and it does matter a lot for commuters. So we all know that the roads and bridges are the backbone of the growing communities in District 7, and these projects can oftentimes take a really long time to get moving. The 610 project in Maple Grove has been 50 years in the works, coming with money from local, state, and federal sources. Through Commissioner Anderson's time over the last 2 years, he's been able to work with his colleagues on the board to secure final funding to complete this project, and it is underway. Next slide, please. So Commissioner Anderson likes to get out in the community whenever he can. He has been honored to be a part of a lot of the great programs that the county has been putting on, like the Productive Day program, which provides training and job opportunities to formerly incarcerated individuals. The tree planting through the Public Works Department, which plans to plant over 1 million trees, and partnerships with organizations to provide deconstruction services for redevelopment projects. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, working with veterans has been a big priority for Commissioner Anderson. This year, he's continued and expanded the partnership with MACV to provide housing stability for veterans facing homelessness, most recently purchasing the Robin Hotel in Robbinsdale to provide 16 additional units for veterans in the state. He's also convened a summit on veterans' mental health, where they discussed how we can better coordinate with services to meet the needs of the veteran population when and where they need help. Next slide, please. So last year, Commissioner Anderson's office also convened several roundtables on mental health in our communities. This focused on mental health professionals, schools, parents, and first responders. He then hosted a public town hall with each of those groups represented on the panel. These events were all very well attended and provided vital insight into to the county staff as to the challenges facing the needs of the community.
Can I ask you a question?
Please do.
Do you know how much the mental health budget went up at HCMC over the last 2 years?
I don't, but I would love to find out for you.
I do.
Okay?
I would submit that if they were really committed to it, that their budget would reflect that.
Sure. I will definitely take that back to the commissioner. All right, next we've got the youth sports grant. This is one of the most popular programs that the county operates. District 7 continues to be well represented on these projects. Because of an initiative that Commissioner Anderson led in 2021, arts programs for youth will also be a part of this grant funding moving forward. Perfect. We can leave this up because I wanted to touch base on a few of the youth sports grant things in Corcoran. So it sounds like we've got $10,000 at City Park and Wildflower Park for a new mower in 2022. And also $300,000 for City Park remastering project in 2023.
Have those funds come to us already or no?
So we've received the grant application. We do need to expend those funds by 2026. So it's we have some time to get those funds.
Okay.
And the project can move forward.
Let me know if there's anything that you need us to follow up on. Would be happy to. All right. Another thing that we're really proud of is the start of the embedded social worker program in 2022, which was a 7-city collaborative effort with the cities of Deep Haven, Orono, South Lake Minnetonka, Wayzata, Corcoran, Minnetrista, and Medina. We've also done a cost participation project, which I believe you're all very familiar with, between Hennepin and the city of Medina for traffic signal replacement, pedestrian ramp upgrades, turn lanes, and a multi-use trail at County Road 116, which is also Pinto Drive, and Hackmore Road intersection. This is a part of the Hackmore Road reconstruction project at an estimated county cost of $399,000 and an estimated receivable of $30,000 from the cities. And lastly, another project that we've been working on is the cost participation agreement of $124,000 for a Corcoran property to restore several wetlands and install 42 acres of prairie that will reduce pollution and benefit Rush Creek. And last is the budget overview, everyone's favorite topic. So in December, the county approved a 3.5% increase to the tax levy. This was a reduction from the initial 4.5% max levy approved in September. Just like every city, the county is facing increased costs due to inflation in building materials as well as staffing. We're going to continue to be as responsible as possible with your tax dollars to ensure that we're making smart investments in infrastructure, energy, public safety, and the people that will benefit residents of Hennepin County.
What percentage increase was the budget?
3.5% increase to the tax levy.
What was the budget increase?
I don't want to give you a wrong number. I think I know it, but again, can I circle back with you?
I actually thought they did an all right job on the budget.
Okay, that's great to hear.
I wanted you to say it publicly. Do you know? Do you know what it is?
No, I know it went up on my tax statement, but that's all I know.
That's just the levy number.
I don't know now that you said it that way, though, 3.6 on the % on the levy. I don't know what the actual budget increase is.
I'll find out for you.
It's a hard position they put you in to come to these meetings, I think.
Oh, I'm happy to. It's okay. I will circle back with all of the questions that you've asked with some more information. I'll try to get that to you within the next couple of days here. Should I send it to you,
If you want to
Jessica?
send it to me, otherwise, council's entire, or their email addresses are on the website, but if you want
Okay.
to send it to me,
So can we ask other questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll take notes. Again, I'm I'm rather new to the job, so I'll make sure that we get you the right information here.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people are excited about that 610 project, except it's gonna dump thousands of vehicles onto County Road 30 that already is not capable of handling the vehicles that it already has on it.
Sure.
Like if you go and take 30 down to where it intersects on 19. So I'm on the fire department, and I know between like 3 and 6, I won't even make it to the firehouse in 25 minutes. I don't bother to go
Interesting, okay.
because it's such a problem. That will happen, double that. It's a really dangerous and bad neighborhood, and we haven't had before us any real clarity on what's gonna happen with County Road 30, other than that thousands of new cars are gonna be.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, everyone else might be excited about that 610 dump in there, but we're actually not out here.
Yeah, yeah,
Some people might be, because it'll actually be easier to get on 610 too. So there's a catch-22.
yep, yep.
But there's this impression that Hennepin doesn't do much out here in the way of roads. Because they've tried to give us 50 back, they've tried to give us 10 back, the county
Sure.
roads. That's in their plan. So I would love it if they came to now what, now what with, what are we gonna do with those roads?
Yeah,
Or the cars. Thank you for helping us with snow removal. Our guys were buried this year. Your guys were
Yeah.
buried too, guys and gals. And so we appreciate that side of things. One really big bone I have to pick with, well, specifically Commissioner Anderson, but the whole Hennepin County, all of them, is, I asked him when he came out last, or talked to him about a problem we have in crime and criminal prosecution of our cases. And there's an additional problem with when we recruit police officers, they ask what county we are in. Not everyone knows Corcoran is in Hennepin County. A lot of police officers don't want to work in Hennepin County. Part of that reason is we have a lot of our cases thrown out by judges, and a lot of our crime goes unprosecuted by Hennepin County attorneys. And he said, he sort of like said, well, that's the judges and the Hennepin County attorneys that's not his department
sure.
or whatever. So on the Hennepin County Commissioner website, part of what they have listed is their mission, values, and what they do. It says one of their things is to protection and safety. And one of their missions is people are safe from harm through prevention, early intervention, and treatment services, and through enhanced public safety. And so I wanted to challenge him on his sort of like brushing that off as a judicial and elected judges problem. And I don't feel like I have to explain the crime problem we have, or the crime problem Hennepin County has. Businesses are leaving Hennepin County. AT&T just took their name off one of the skyscrapers in downtown Minneapolis. And it seems like every day someone's leaving. I think the freeways would leave if they could. It's a problem. And I think it's disingenuous to it's either disingenuous to put it on your website that you're going to have or prevent or intervene, or even that you care about public safety if when asked about it or when we have a public safety problem, to just poo-poo it or to not take responsibility for it. And either get that paragraph off your website or do something about it. Or just let us leave the county if you can't do what you're charged to do. And so, I would appreciate a little action on that.
Yeah,
I would say most people would say that's the biggest problem.
yep, okay.
Maybe roads would be number one, but at least for out here, protection and active crime prosecution by Hennepin County. I don't have anything else.
I was going to bring up roads. Specifically, all of the intersections of 19 with major county roads, there's a lot of backup, and individuals who have driveways that enter out onto 19 really struggle to get out a lot of the time. There's not a
Sure.
lot of breaks in that traffic pattern. So it would be great to get some county attention on upgrades at intersections on along 19 to add enough capacity to deal with the traffic flow, especially with the 610 upgrade that's expected. Those cars need a place to go and a way to get there efficiently and safely that they don't have today.
Piggyback off your comment about roads, one thing that we're talking about a lot of is crosswalks from city streets. And so you've got a major trail running down 19 and across this other county roads that we have no control over. So,
Got it.
you know, we'll be looking for some support from the county too, to make those intersections safer for pedestrians.
That's specifically County Road 19.
County Road 19, 30, and 30 and 50 and 10.
Got it.
You know, anywhere where it's out of the discretion of the city.
Okay, yep.
And I'll jump on too. The traffic is crazy. I am not a fan of roundabouts, but
Sure.
what the intersection at 19 and County Road 30, there was a fix put in, a right turn lane with a merge lane north on 19.
Yeah,
It does not work. It would be nice if much more attention would be paid to that. And then 19 and 117 in the northwest corner of our beautiful little city. A three-way stop with one area. I have seen too many close events, and our public safety officers have been responding to a number of serious events, and that needs to be corrected. If anything, a four-way stop, it just, it's the wrong kind of thing. And I've been out here 30-some years, and it's been this way for a long time, and people do not, something's got to be done. It needs to be highlighted at night,
Yeah.
flashing reds, something, but even a broader picture, especially with 610 completed.
yeah,
I know a lot of the things are gonna be dumping out into here, but
Yeah.
our drive-through traffic is huge. And he can get specific information, I'm sure, from our public, safety folks and stuff on the number of citations given to people that don't even live
Yeah.
here, so.
And what intersection was that? I'm sorry.
The worst one in my mind is, it's a coin flip, isn't it?
I'll take all of them.
117 and 19
Okay,
is bad. I can't think of a word bad enough. 19 and County Road 30
okay,
is probably as bad, if not bad. They're both
Yeah.
worse than each other. I can't
yeah,
put,
that's my place,
but the cut through traffic, everything that's gonna happen,
for sure.
while our roads are still country,
Yeah,
county needs to do something as those major collectors, whatever they're identified for, we gotta
Yeah.
do something about those intersections.
for sure.
So many people will cut south on whatever to get to 10, and then they've got a chance to get across at 19 and Bass Lake Road or County Road 10,
Sure.
where there's a four-way stop. It's
Yeah.
just, it's crazy.
Understood. I'll make sure that we circle back with
It's
our
huge.
transportation department on that, for sure.
And then again, what John was stating about the prosecution and those kind of things, it's on the
Yeah.
website. Public safety,
Yeah,
while I understand the intervention of all of the things that they're adding to, that prosecution level, I think needs to go higher. It needs to be driven by our state representatives, county commissioners, all of those
for sure.
things.
Yep,
It's something that is more than just county issue, it's a
Yeah.
statewide issue, so.
thank you. I
Thank
really
you for
appreciate your
listening to us.
honesty. I
You bet.
promise I've taken copious notes. I will be back to you with as much information as I have, and I hope that this can be an ongoing conversation as well.
And you can share our audio with Kevin also.
For sure, yep,
Thank you for listening very much and coming.
sounds good.
Thank you, Clara.
Thank you.
He can
Thank you.
reinvest our light rail dollars back into our city
Light rail.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, light rail, that's a whole thing.
Well, that's where your transportation budget's going, by the way. And
Yeah,
I'm sure you hear from every other city except Minneapolis, who loves it, that it's a waste of, it's a waste of money compared to the number of people it transports, but.
yeah, it's definitely a very tricky conversation right now between the commissioners, but.
Are they gonna make up that budget difference? Do you know? Hennepin County? There's a half,
Don't, gosh, my
500
council
million,
just-
isn't the gap? What's the gap? Between the cost of the southwest line and what they have for money?
I will have to get back to you on that.
It's huge, but they're already planning a northwest.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
Huge gap, and then let's plow more of it.
Kevin said when he came in here that they weren't gonna spend that money. He said, we're not gonna make that budget, we're not gonna make up that budget gap. Cause they spent how many billions? And they're it's like $500 million that no one can come up with to finish the Southwest Trail, or the Southwest Rail Line. I bet they find it and our roads remain stop signs.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Clara.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item 8.
7.
7 first.
Consent agenda.
Consent agenda? I'll make a motion to
Can we,
pass consent agenda, unless you want to.
can I make it friendly? Can we pull G and H just to thank those two organizations,
Yes.
groups?
I would second that.
Anything else? Any other? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda, pulling items G, H, G and H.
So moved.
Second.
No, I made the motion.
I'll
You
second
seconded.
it.
Vote in favor, or those in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Aye. Nay. Motion carries 4-0. On to 8, planning business.
Oh, we gotta,
Gotta talk
G and
H
H.
first.
I just want to publicly thank those
Yes.
groups that, the JCs for the tree donation and the multiple organizations for the truck safety seminar donation.
Tree donation this year, went 650 trees donated, and they will be passed out on the 29th, Saturday the 29th.
Do you have any extras?
We do not, oh no, the Wright County watershed, or Wright County has extra trees.
Okay. Beautiful, thank you.
If I can ask a question quick too. Do you ever have any not picked up, Tom?
Because it's in April and people are busy, some don't get picked up for a couple of days.
You hold on to them and
I do.
get them
They
to?
come to
Okay.
my house and the people have to come to me to pick
Okay.
and that has worked well. It's much better if you pick them up that day, they're really small, and I can't really give them TLC they need, but yeah.
If you run into an issue, I know some places that would accept planting them. So
Okay, thank you.
Every year I vow to Tom that I will come pick them up at the appropriate time, and I always forget and have to get them at his house the next day.
You're not the only special one, Jeff.
I'll make a motion to approve G and H.
Second.
All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. On to item 8, planning business. I think first we'll have a public comment opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, anyone joining us in the audience who would like to speak on planning items 8A or B, and come to the podium, state your name and address. If you're joining us virtually, you can press *9 if you're on a telephone, or if you are on a other electronic device, click reactions and raise your hand. Mayor and council, at this time, no one is raising their hand electronically.
Okay. So moving along, item 8A, the Corcoran meet.
To be perfectly honest, Mr. Acting Mayor, my presentation is a quick summary of the staff report. So if you would like to waive the presentation, I'm happy to do that and just answer any questions.
Yeah, if you could stand by for questions, we could just take the questions in the order of the packet.
Fair enough.
And I would swear that we answered a lot of these when we talked about it at our little roundtable with the owners. But I'm not so sure we answered some of the specific questions. Will on-site animal slaughtering be a permitted use going forward? And then, so I guess or do they allow that now?
Mr. Acting Mayor, it's not an allowed use in the district. It is a legal non-conforming use. They've ceased operations, and if they do not find a buyer before the one-year marker where they ceased operations, it would no longer be protected as a non-conforming use. So if they resume, and they've been told this, if they resume before the one-year marker, they can continue operating as is without any additional approvals being granted. If they decide to, or if they are not able to find someone that begins
Oh.
operation, then there would be a zoning ordinance amendment to allow.
Let me rephrase. You're talking about is it animal processing? Where they bring, like, when I think of slaughtering, I'm thinking people bring live animals there and they shoot them or hit them in the head with a hammer and then skin them and cut them up, as opposed to them getting a big frozen carcass in that they cut into.
My understanding is they receive live animals and they slaughter them on.
Yes.
So that was my question. I've been in there 100 times and I've never seen an actual live animal being killed at Corcoran.
You probably never would. It was done very well.
Oh, okay.
This was the animal shoot.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
The issue is the animal chute is encroaching onto city property, and that is not protected as a legal non-conforming use.
Okay.
Because it's an encroachment. So that is one of the illegal nonconformities that was pointed out in the staff report. I don't know exactly how they are going to deal with that. That would be something that would need to get addressed with a new user.
Do you guys
It
have?
seems like the kind of thing you probably wouldn't want to have as a permitted use, just for the sake of scale in future. What might you be unwittingly enabling by making it a permitted use? Maybe that's something you would want to consider as a conditional use in certain areas. But I wouldn't support carte blanche for animal slaughter in the city.
Maybe if it wasn't on city property,
No,
I would have, or not, it has always been non-conforming.
yeah. And I'm okay with the legal non-conforming potentially continuing if there was a viable way to do it on the site. But I wouldn't want to amend code to add it as a permitted use to any of our existing zones. But in the right place, I think it could be okay.
Yeah, I grew up on a farm. I've had pigs as near as 4 years ago.
But I think the question is really regarding for the sale of it, right? Either to sell or continue operating.
Yeah, and I do believe this portion of the discussion was answered pretty well at the last meeting. You know, basically, they were directed to ideally get something going before we have to worry about our code. And then if they are not able to get someone in there within the year marker, then we would be potentially willing to looking at a zoning ordinance amendment to allow animal slaughtering within our commercial district. I do believe a conditional use would make sense from a planning standpoint, because we would want to make sure that we're my understanding, my very rudimentary understanding, because I'm a city girl, is that animal slaughtering can cause problems with septic and sewer if it's not handled well, so we would want to probably get some standards to be able to mitigate that.
I just note that the applicant in this, or the group that we've been working with on this particular project is online. They did have their hand raised at one point.
Oh, okay.
But just so you know, if you have particular questions for them, they'd be able to answer those.
I mean, I think I left it, I was open to allowing it if it continued in the same manner of operation. And I see that having a meat market as a benefit to the city, so I don't think I'm really gonna waver on that right at this point.
To, outside the box here for a second, we talked about the city being potentially interested in acquiring the property and adding it to the park. To deal with the encroachment, would the city be willing to sell land to the owner
To make it in compliance.
to allow them to be compliant and sell a 30-foot strip of the park?
Well, you probably only have to sell as far as the drainage ditch on the other side of the slaughter stall. I'd be open to that too.
I'd be open to that.
Now, when we talk about having it, there's no question that the new owners would have to get everything up to code, right?
For the most part. There are some legal nonconformities that if they don't expand and they just continue as is, they can remain indefinitely.
But like the building has to be up to code, and like the,
It would have to be up to fire code, but, I mean, if we're talking zoning code, there's some protections as it currently stands.
oh, okay.
The only thing that is not protected as a legal nonconformity in terms of the zoning code is that red highlighted area. The southernmost accessory structure got added, nope. Yeah, that one. That got added after the adoption of our zoning ordinance, and it would need a variance from both setbacks to be able to stay where it's at currently, and I don't know if it meets the building standards for accessory structures and the footprint standards. I'd have to look at that. I don't have enough information right now.
Okay. So
So if I can help clear up any confusion, the direction from the last council discussion was for staff to provide more information as to what variances would be needed for the site constraint. So that's what this report was trying to do, to see
I see.
if you guys were open to granting some of these variances and to understand what was in your purview. To continue parking in the county right-of-way, that really is not in our purview. And if they were to expand or have a new use, not necessarily a new user, but a new use go in and the site gets redeveloped, likely that would not be something grandfathered in perpetually. And we don't even know if it's really grandfathered in now. That'd be something I'd have to work out with the county and the city attorney. Kendra does not think that technically it's grandfathered in. It's unlikely the county's going to do anything about it at this point. But again, if the site expands or redevelops, then that's probably when they will want that to be addressed.
So is the three questions really the two circled red and the slaughtering as a permissible use?
Well, I think we've worked out the animal slaughtering. We're willing to work on that as needed. As far as variance for the fence in, I forget what it's called, the western structure for animals. If we are willing to, I was not asking if we were willing to sell land, but I guess that would be one solution to it if.
You're
they're
talking the
able to
unload
remove
chute
it.
is what you're talking.
Yeah, the animal chute, thank you, I'm sorry. Again, I am a city girl.
That's okay. We'll help you.
So, the animal chute, if you want that, if you're okay with that staying where it's at, then trying to figure out some kind of lot line adjustment, that, the question for that would, if we're willing to sell them land and have, that would have to be a plat and preliminary plat, because we're talking about expanding a non-conforming lot, and so we have to grant ourselves a variance, and so we can only do that through a plat, and we can't do it through a simpler process, so who's paying for the plat and preliminary plat? And the process to get that done would be a follow-up question to that, but I do think that would be one solution, yes.
The only other wrinkle that would have to be investigated is depending on how the parkland was purchased, sometimes there's restrictions on what you can do with that property. So I don't know the history of when the city overtook that, but parkland can be tricky when you try to exchange it. So there would need to be some due diligence completed by our city attorney to know if that's even a possibility. So
Do we want to let them speak? I forgot about that.
Would that apply the same thing if we did a land swap?
I would think so. I mean, it's.
Depending on what kind of land.
Parks, it's a red flag to make sure that you check out.
Yeah, I know, if it's a park, I'm thinking, you swap a tree that's sitting there that's useless to anyone.
You say trees are useless?
Well, I mean, it's
Tom's right
useless
there.
for the
He's-
property owner right now. It would be of value to the city
Katie
or the
or
park.
anyone joining us virtually.
And the
do you
stall
want
area is
to-
really useless.
for- On this
to
property,
us
if
currently.
you'd like to speak, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, it's Katie Goman from the Corcoran Locker.
Hi, Katie.
Hi. The one thing I wanted to clarify is that animal chute that you keep calling it isn't where they shoot animals. It's a ramp
Yep,
that the trailers back up to.
CHUTE, not SHOOT.
Yes,
Yep. nope,
exactly.
I was on it, so
You got it.
Natalie was probably thinking bang, but
No,
Oh.
I just, the animals are kept there, was my understanding of the situation. I didn't think that's where they
They're
were
not
being
kept,
slaughtered,
that's where
so I
they're
apologize
just
if I
unloaded.
said that.
Yes, unloaded.
they're unloaded and go immediately into the building.
Okay, yeah.
They don't sit
Exactly.
outside.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so I misunderstood that portion, but I did not think that's where they were shot, for the record, or, yeah.
Dispatch, we'll call it.
Anything else?
I think one of our main questions too was I think it's like question number 3 or 4 is about acquiring appraisal if the city wants to purchase or would be willing to purchase the property.
Baisi, can you speak to that a bit more?
Sure, I think in the past, if someone's wanted to have the city purchase property, we generally have them complete an appraisal for an appraisal as, and we generally don't seek out property to purchase, so we generally have those costs be borne by the person wanting to sell the property, or have us purchase the property.
Okay, can we mute? What if we wanted to buy a parkland? Like there's some lot for sale or whatever, and we decided, hopefully we do this sometime soon.
Yeah.
We decide we're gonna buy parkland, we go to them and.
If it's something that we decide to purchase and move forward with, yes, the question is, does the city want to purchase this? That might be the clarification, that if we haven't made a determination on whether or not we want to purchase the land, we might have them do an appraisal before.
My preference would be to have a commercial operator in there, personally.
I've stated I'd love to see it just continue as is.
Sounds like there are still some challenges with that for them. I see value in it for the city, especially if we can also end up getting that adjacent property so that we can potentially do something to correct or deal with that corner in the future. So my druthers would be it just gets put back into service, but that may not be the best option for the applicant. And I do see value for the city in having that property to help deal with either future park expansion or dealing with traffic issues in that environment going forward.
I don't know that we have much control over
We
the
don't have
traffic,
any
because it's
control
bordered
over
by two
traffic.
county roads, so I wouldn't put a lot of eggs in that basket.
We can't directly do anything with it, but if we have land available, it expands options should there be an opportunity in the future versus continuing to have private property there.
It's very likely that there'll be some indirect cost share agreement at a minimum where could be a value placed on that property in exchange for something. It's very unlikely that that would be 100% funded by the county. So you could pair that land value in terms of right-of-way, and that would be a cost share component of a future project. So I think that would still be a potential option in that type of scenario.
We'd probably be just trading dollars, right? We'd be either funding it up front by purchasing the land and trading the dollars in the cost down the road, or bearing the cost down the road on its own.
Yeah, so if we purchased it and we used it as right-of-way, potentially, you'd have a valuation, you could give that right-of-way and some agreement to the county, there would be a value placed on it. So if we had a 50-50 cost split, which, Maple Grove does with the county, if the project's $3 million, we have 1.5 million cost share, the valuation of that land could go towards that 1.5 in that kind of indirect cost scenario, if that makes sense.
In the current master plan of the parks, would this even fit into what we've already planned for?
I think if you got both of those properties at some point, some of the two properties would go into park probably and be kind of an entrance. It's not in our current plan because it's not a property we own. And some of it would be part of a transportation component, which would benefit the park and the users. You could make that argument potentially. So I think if you took these two pieces, some of it might end up being park and some of it might end up being infrastructure, whether that's a roundabout, roadway, or even a stormwater pond to address, that would be a requirement of constructing the road. So I think it's a blended use, which if we did pursue it, I would recommend evaluating other options to pay for it than the park fund, because that might limit you on the use. And it'd be better to leave that open until it redeveloped at some point, if that makes sense.
Do you know how many acres it is?
0.25 acres.
So,
If we were considering purchasing it, I would be more open to consideration if both properties came in as one offer. I don't want to be in a position where we buy a piece of property and then we're stuck with it, can't do anything with it. It really is no value unless we purchase the other piece of property, which then we would be held to, paying a lot more than really what it's worth.
so let's just pretend, let's pretend that the city decided we're gonna buy a quarter of an acre for a park. If we bought it for a park, that building is actually a hindrance to its park value. Like if we were gonna buy, so if we were gonna buy this quarter acre for a park, we would have to have demolition costs in our value of
You
that.
have to discount the offer by whatever that.
Yeah, it would probably cost, I'm way outside my area of expertise, but I had an appraiser done appraisal done for a house, which was not, and it's like 15 grand to take these things out and so a quarter, that quarter acre isn't gonna be worth very much as an addition to our 155 acre park, in my opinion. But, and we'd have to get it, because we're a public entity, we would have to get, well, one, it's not even for sale. And we'd have to get it appraised, like we'd have to get it appraised with, I don't know what kind of value, a quarter acre there with a building they'd have to tear down would even be worth.
We'd have to get it not only appraised, but also inspected, because there could be environmental
Yeah.
issues that we'd have to mitigate.
Yeah,
So the cost could go from your 15,000 example extremely high quickly.
yeah, so I would say it's gonna, if I was the family, I would try to have someone buy it as an operating entity, but they're asking for our opinion about would we be open to certain things? And I think we've been clear in 2 meetings that we are open to certain things. But it kind of, we've done what we can do as a council, is to say, we're open to having them be an operating entity. And we'd be open to buying it, but would have to be like, just like any other piece of land. Not, and so it's not that valuable of a piece of property from a park perspective. And then having a land swap would be a nightmare. I think when we look at what is involved in a land swap, I would be curious of what you guys have to say about a land swap. Unless the family came and said, we want this or whatever, something, like, I don't wanna entertain an idea of a land swap, because it is a logistical nightmare, and we'd bury ourselves in trying to figure out the best piece of property. I don't know.
A land swap, you still have the same issues of demolition and.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
You know, right, so,
and we have a bunch of land that we can't,
raw land's easier to do that with, but when you've got stuff that's unknown.
but we can't take a piece of property like on the corner of Shuddy Road and 116 up there. We can't do a land swap with it because it was a tax forfeited piece that we bought for $1.
Along Shuddy and, yes, there are some pieces
Yeah, so that would be
not
off the, there are a bunch of land that would have to be off the table. We would have to get our own land appraised too. So that would be a mess. I would say I don't wanna go down that route unless someone comes to us and says, we would like this piece, specific piece, or whatever, I don't know.
Every route is messy, is what I'm hearing. There is no clean, elegant solution to this conundrum.
I was just gonna mention to council, I did speak with the city attorney, we would not need to require an appraisal be done of the property, but generally we'd wanna know what we would be getting, like what the value we'd be getting. So we could build it into the purchase price, we could have them do it beforehand. There's a couple ways to do it, but the easiest I think from helping us make that decision is understanding what the land is worth would help us make that decision, so that having them do an appraisal first. But we certainly could look at doing a different, if we were open to it, we could look at doing a different option, generally. That was our recommendation.
Do we know if the 1050, I think it's stopped operating. Is it current? Is it being maintained?
Well,
My understanding is there are some people living there,
It's homestead.
and it's a homestead.
Okay.
But if the idea is, it might be something we are more with considering, with the 1050, at your direction, we could reach out to see what the situation is, and if it's something they're wanting to sell, or, But yeah, they are no longer operating, and I don't know if they are, I'd have to look into, I don't know exactly what all protections have disappeared now, because it's been a little over a year. I think the use is okay, but some of the structure, I don't know, I'd have to look into it.
They did not renew their liquor license in 2020, so it's been a few years.
The current market value, if that means anything for this property on the Hennepin property map, is 145,000 right now. Just a number.
Yeah,
But again, talking about what's there, I think there is a well, and then there's a septic system that's pumped regularly,
yeah.
or was pumped regularly and stuff, so we'd have to
I'm talking,
resolve that, and then obviously
Yeah.
demolition if we weren't gonna
that's the value of it.
currently.
Yeah, as a
2020.
commercial property, we would buy it as.
Commercial preferred is what it says
Yeah.
right now, yep.
And the city would have, the only thing the city could buy it as is,
Actually,
is
in 20,
bare land, vacant land. We couldn't buy it for its commercial value because we're not gonna use it for its commercial purpose.
right, 2020, assessed 23 value, payable 2024 is 152,000 current state.
Yeah,
I think honestly, the discounted value of the thing would probably mitigate, they wouldn't even be interested in selling it to us once they found out what
Yeah.
that discounted value was. I mean, personally, if it was my property, I'd probably look to hire a manager and operate it myself. But that's, I can't speak to them, you know, they have their own circumstances and whatnot, but I don't see it, I don't see the value in the city buying it, to be honest with you.
I think that answers all of staff's question at this time, and I think that gives them some direction I think my understanding is, if there is any desire for us to still purchase after this conversation, they would need to do the appraisal, and, please note that it would probably be a much better proposal with the east property as a part of that, but staff is not going to do anything further at this time. Okay.
thank you. PUD, item 8B. I think I would actually I would like to make a motion that we send that to the planning commission with the points that we talked about last meeting.
Second?
With
Yeah.
or without?
With,
Why the change, if I can ask?
didn't change. I'm gonna vote against it.
Okay,
We had like an hour-long conversation about
Yep.
this, like one meeting ago. And I think that having those builders, I still think builders will manipulate the system, and they'll try to force us to pass things that we don't want to pass just because of the points. So that's my 30-second summary of my argument, since we already had an hour-long argument 2 weeks ago. I don't feel like we need to rehash old ground for longer than 30 seconds, at least for me. You can have your 30 seconds. You can have 10 minutes, I think, by Robert's rules, but I lost 4-1, so, last time.
So, one thing I just want to point out, I don't think we had public comment opportunity, did we?
Oh, for,
We did at the top of the
We did at
section.
Yeah.
top for
Oh, we
both
top of
the-
section, okay, sorry. For discussion on this then, I'm fine moving it forward knowing that we can pull it out at council. I'd love to hear what public comment is on it and what comment we get from planning commission and hearing,
okay.
so.
Any other, do you want,
I made my points last time.
okay.
I don't feel a strong need to repeat them. But if
Okay.
anybody wants me to, I will.
All in,
So we have a motion, a second.
yeah, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
nay, I Sorry, I'm changing my mind to go no points.
Well, this isn't voting for no points. This is voting for not having the option to consider points in the future. You can still vote no later. But you already did vote, so now we're deadlocked.
No, it wasn't it 3-1? No? Or was
It was 2-2.
Two.
Oh.
So the motion
I
dies.
see. I thought I was out of here. All right, no, you guys go ahead. I apologize.
So basically,
So
without a
we-
motion, we're not moving this
Or-
forward to
or-
planning commission, right?
You could
Or you could make a new
make a
motion
new motion
to get 3.
I'll make
I'll make a motion to pass it to planning commission to include the policy suggestion outlined in the staff report, specifically asking for separate feedback on the point system as a mandatory requirement versus just the content of the ordinance absent the point system. So we get both. So it's easier for council when we have to make a policy decision to decouple the points from the rest of the ordinance.
And just so I understand, so basically, it's the same, it's still option 1, we're saying.
Still option 1,
Okay.
but I'm asking that when planning commission gives us their findings, they have separate discussions on should there be a point element to this, whether it's considered to be flexible as we intend, or whether we would de facto treat it as rigid and binding. And then also separate feedback on the content of the ordinance and the value of the items asked for in either the point system or just the list of categories.
Okay.
Didn't I just make this motion?
It's very similar, but I'm more specific.
You have a motion? I'll second it.
All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, this time.
All opposed, nay.
Sorry.
I'm so confused. Okay. All right.
Watch the video.
Forward the point. I'll forward the point.
I don't know if you can make, I do not know if you can make the same motion 2 times in a row.
I think that you changed it to wanting feedback on specific, more than just points.
I mean, but that would, to be fair, I think what he's asking for, what I was talking about in option 1. So it's fine. We will go forward with option 1 for the planning commission public hearing. And you guys will have options on the back end.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
I know.
And as a parting thought, if I were a developer looking to take advantage of the system, I would only submit PUDs on 29-acre parcels. That would be how I would deal with the system.
You would what?
I would only submit PUDs on 29-acre parcels, because below 30, the point system wouldn't apply. You just have to have 3 of the elements considered in the ordinance.
So he's telling them to subdivide first before he come in. Can't believe we don't charge for this. Okay.
Okay.
Are you checking Robert's rules?
Yeah.
If we needed to, we could
No, I'm not gonna,
we could bring it to the May.
no, we
meeting.
can,
We'd want to bring it to the June planning commission if we're.
no, we're not gonna fight about this one. Item 9, or items 9, unfinished business. I open the floor to public comment.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Anyone in the audience who'd like to join us for public comment can state your name and address. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 or click reactions and click raise your hand. Mayor and Council, at this time, no one's raising their hand.
Okay. Item 9A, I'm going to make the motion that we have 2 options. One is to approve the sale of GO bonds. The others decline the sale. And I'm going to make a motion, we choose option 1.
So moved.
Could we hear
He likes to make
Tammy's
the motions, you have to
presentation?
say second.
Or second.
I'm learning, John.
If, can I amend that? If we get a presentation?
Well,
Came all this way, I'd
I
love
don't
to
want to screw this up, but
okay. I see no need to have a presentation. Because it won't change the outcome.
All right.
But,
We,
Do you want to just highlight how good we did over the preliminary versus this actual sale? Just state that for the record, so the
Thank you.
public who is not reading the
That would
packet
be
can.
better.
Mayor, City Council, for the record, Tammy Umdahl with Northland Security, serving as advisor to the city on the sale of approximately 26.1 million. To get right to the point, then, 5 bids were received this morning. The city did extremely well. There were a lot of external factors at play that also helped the city. At time of set sale, when I say extremely well, I'm referring to the interest. At time of set sale, we had estimated 4.85%. That included a 75 basis point, 0.75% cushion. The final bid from Piper, true interest cost is at 3.7%. So rates have moved around a little bit since it was January 26th, meaning down, and also market conditions and other competing sales, both in Minnesota and nationally, played, in my opinion, to the city's favor. So great results for the city of Corcoran. The final par amount will be $25,545,000, and that, the reason for the reduction is Piper, the winning bid with premium. That premium was not needed to fund project costs. That premium was used to reduce the par amount of the bonds. With that, I would recommend that the city council award the sale of the bonds to Piper with low bid. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Excellent.
Do you have a motion and a second?
all those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have to abstain.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank you, Tammy.
Does that save more than $1 million in lifetime interest expense?
Not a million,
Not quite.
but it's good. So, and Maggie has all the ready impacts and all that. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy.
Drive safely.
Thank you.
Item 9B,
Here, Mayor and Council, we do have capital improvement plan purchases. We presented the 2022-2023 capital improvement plan purchases in January of last year, and we have some, we did move forward with 2022 purchases, but have some remaining 2023 purchases with some minor tweaks to, in particular, the Public Works items. And Kevin and Pat are here to answer any questions you have on those.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve the recommendations, subject to our discussion. Questions?
Subject to discussion?
Well, we make a motion, then a second, then we have our discussion.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Or Jeremy, either one.
Are there questions or are there things you want to ask, or do you want a presentation?
I was just gonna ask, some of the items that we're replacing, when we have a resale value listed, could we get an idea of what the year of the vehicle is? And I know you have a metrics you use, right, but it'd be nice to have information on that.
And I will say that philosophically, that my requirement or my guide for how the city spends money is inflation plus increase in population. And so it sort of is the city administrator's job to have that fall into place as far as I'm concerned. How should the budget look? To me, it looks like inflation plus population growth. Your responsibility is to divide the spend of the city into the departments, and it's the responsibility of the departments to figure out how to spend the money to give the city effective in roads, effective ditch maintenance, effective whatever. So if, for example, we had a crime issue, we might have a conversation around increasing the police budget. If there are other issues, we will have conversations around that. I try not to get too into the details about, like, you should buy the John Deere 3066R instead of the 4066R, or whatever. Is there a 3066R? Isn't that the slightly smaller one? Yeah. So anyways, I looked through it. Another wish is that we cash flow these items, as we talked about in our meeting. A good city, I think, cash flows some of its capital expense more, and we used to cash flow none, and we used to bond for lawnmowers. I want to get further away from that as a city, but we're not there yet.
As we present the next budget, this past year, we had 300,000 that we have been putting towards capital, and we've been increasing that year-over-year incrementally to get there. Just some of the equipment needs and costs have outpaced our ability to set aside funds. So we'll continue to work on how to cash flow that.
I don't have any questions about the equipment or anything like that. That was just a.
Tom? You have any issues or concerns or questions?
Tom?
Tom?
Dean?
Sure. Just the one.
Tom? Dean?
When,
Tom?
when did we re-roof City Hall last?
We've never
That
done it.
answers it? No. It's the only question I got.
Sounds like an Eagle Scout project.
I think we want it professionally done,
Okay.
Professional Eagle Scout.
just for the unknowns. That's why we included that 15 grand in there. There's
Yep.
various leaks, and so we just wanted to be able to respond and deal with it on the fly. No offense to any Eagle Scouts, but I think in this case, we'd recommend.
Jeremy?
I have no questions.
So, all those in favor, vote by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Mayor, if I may, well, Pat's here. I just want to give him credit. I know we've talked about it before, but Pat and Brandon and the rest of the team, they handle the fleet. They do an outstanding job, and they value it like their own. So I just want to, since he's here, I want to acknowledge what he does for the city. Everyone in the city should be very proud of how he handles fleet, in my opinion. So I want to thank you, Pat. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Pat.
How about, can we give you kudos for snow removal all winter too? Thank you for that.
Everybody loves their gravel roads till the rocks are in the
Can I ask a question about that, Pat?
Yes, you can.
Do I need to put the rocks back in the road, or can I put them in my paddock?
We'll assess you for those.
I'm not complaining, I'm just saying.
2-second update on it. I'm gonna make this public right now, so we're on the break. We are gonna go through and clean up a lot of the gravel cul-de-sacs. There's a ton of gravel we gotta push off on. We are gonna look at yard by yard basis. I'm not making no promises. It is a low priority to us.
Yep.
It's a high priority to the thing, but the roads are gonna get graded first, crack sealing is gonna get done, that type of stuff first, so that's where we're at with it. When you get the phone calls, we are looking at case by case. And the phones are ringing off the hook, let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I just did my ditch, I got a pile of gravel. I can place it someplace or throw it back in the road. Where do you want it?
Where it ends up, just don't put it in a pile where it's dangerous on the road, it's all I'm
This-
gonna say.
Deal.
That's a Thames question, because
Yeah.
our roads do not become the roads are are public property until they're a certain distance away from the median, so.
I'm just asking.
But now you're publicly saying you're gonna steal.
No, I'm
from the
not.
city.
I'm asking Pat where he wants the rock.
In your
I don't
padding.
think about staff advising where to put
Do you want
the
it back in
Yes.
the road, or can I put it on my driveway?
Why don't you ask him that off the record?
Oh, we're good.
If you have individual questions, reach out and we'll give you some specifics on the timeliness or where you may fit in that priority list. Again, we'll try to get everyone, but there's a lot of,
Probably the toughest year ever with, way the snow was those 2 times and everything. Or have there been tougher ones, Pat?
I wish you guys would've came with the last snowfall road, but that is the hardest snow we have plowed in 30 years. And that snowplow did more damage to our equipment
Yeah.
than the rest of the snowfalls have the last 2 winters. Rear ends, plows, tore wings off, it was just a hard go, and it wasn't only us. I mean, I'll come on and say the same, I know I dropped 2 trucks, we tore the rear ends out of them. It's tough. The county was down, every truck they had and spare was out on the road, and it was just tough plain going. If it would've stayed cold after that, that would've been December, it would've been ugly.
Yeah.
I was in St.
Thank
Louis,
you.
boys. What's your excuse?
About
I was
what?
in Florida, I missed it too.
I watched my snow melt in my driveway, I just let it go.
I plowed mine and then made a trip down to 10 and back to my driveway on Bechtel, so.
So, thank you, Pat. Thank you, Kevin. Item 9C, City Center Drive and 79th Street improvements. So the 2 questions we have on the table are negotiate waiver agreements with the benefiting properties
Okay.
or restart the state statute 429 process. And Jess, do you want to?
Kevin's a bit more familiar with it, but I would say generally the idea really is, when we went out and did an improvement hearing, is unexpected delays that happen with St. Therese, and there's a time, as we found out through the process, there's a timeline to be able to finish your improvement project, so we either have to go out and negotiate with those landowners or restart the process. There's pros and cons to both related to the schedule and the kind of meeting the original expectations of costs for the landowners. But we have had some discussions with them. Kevin had those discussions, so he'd be the best person to talk to about it, but that's generally the idea.
Unless you guys want to just vote. I'm prepared to vote because I know this information already, but
So it's
I would assume you'd want to hear what Kevin has to say.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so essentially our assessments, which is about a little less than 500,000 on an approximately $6 million project, due to that time passing window, are essentially invalid. So we recognize that. So we either have to go to the landowners and say, hey, this was the intention. Here's the situation. Are you willing to waive your 429 appeal rights, basically, and we'll assess you for the originally ordered amount. The alternative, if they say no, would be to kind of delay the project, restart the appraisal. The scope of the project wouldn't change, just the appraisal would change. Likely, I'm not an appraiser, likely, due to market conditions in the last 18 months, it might appraise higher. We don't know. So, but what it also would do is delay the construction of the project until next year. So then you're facing potential construction project increases that might offset that. So when we recognized we basically had an invalid $500,000, frankly, we needed to address options. The landowners, 2 of the properties I met with, they're, as much as they could, be open to the agreement that they're willing to waive that pending reviewing of a document that we prepare and present in front of them. The two that I did not connect to would be the single-family houses immediately south of St. Therese. When we went through this process 18 months ago, we preserved the right to assess those properties, but we didn't finalize the assessment on those properties. That's what we were going to proceed towards until we recognized we had invalid. So they're lower value in terms of the overall, but that's kind of the scenario we encountered. Our plan would be still to approach them and bring back to you any updates, because it would be kind of preparing the same document for all the landowners. So one point would be, do you want us to pursue those single family in our waiver negotiation, or just the kind of the larger properties that were in the original approval? And those would be the Corcoran Bay holding properties were the ones that had, I would say, unanimous support to assess. The other two properties equating to $17,000 were on the fence. In terms of when we reviewed the information, they were on the fence. So there would be some direction on, do you want to pursue all four or just two in the waiver agreement? We would recommend pursuing all four, and we'd bring that back to you. We're not at risk, so we're also recommending proceeding with the design of the streets to keep the schedule going. We're not at risk if in 30 days we have to come back and still, we're not at risk of anything because our project is $6 million and our appraisal is $500,000. So we're not at risk for that. What option one does is allows us to maintain the schedule to build it this year. And the reason we think it's a partnership is it meets the original intent and it's likely to appraise higher.
So, can I ask a question? If we go down the waiver route with all four, and you get agreement from the largest landowners, and the other two don't agree to the waiver, can we move the project forward and carry the cost of those two, and then go through the 429 process with those two?
No, you can't,
It's all or none?
you can't move the project. You have to identify ahead of the project what you're including. So, I mean, you can always continue to negotiate the waiver, but I would give us, 30 to 45 days to do that and then move on and make a decision. We could come back and update you and say, we've got 3 out of the 4. You want us to stop it and restart in 45 days? It would be in the same scenario as today.
What if we never come to agreement with the others?
With, with any of them?
Well, with the ones that are on the fence?
The
A
true
theoretical
single-family ones or the larger
Huh?
ones?
A theoretical holdout.
Yeah.
A theoretical of all 4 or?
No,
one?
just, let's say you get agreement from the largest ones, right, where the major amount is,
Mhm.
but you have a holdout from the other two.
We would come back and tell you we have a holdout at an originally budgeted, call it 14,000 of a $6 million project. Do you want to pause the project to restart the process and proceed differently, or you'd have to absorb that 14,000 into the budget, which would be a state aid cost or a bonding cost?
Oh, so we'd have no ability to recoup those funds?
No.
Okay.
So we do our best to negotiate that. There's some other easements that are required with St. Therese that we have to negotiate with them anyways on. So, I mean, from staff's perspective, for 14,000 on a $6 million job, I don't know that I'd reset the schedule, would be our recommendation.
Yeah.
Especially considering that was one that was on the fence to even assess, but that's the direction we're looking for from you. So if we went with option one as recommended, you could give us a timeline to bring back a waiver agreements. If we don't, we would update you on where they're at, and then you could still pause the project, go through the 429 process and go. Option one just preserves us the ability to build the project this year. If we were to at all go back through and reassess, it would kick the street project to next year, which could have cost impacts, probably more than 14,000 realistically. And it just has delays to the, kind of the original anticipated schedule there with St. Therese, and so. Gets a little nuanced, but I mean, we would, without a significant amount of that planned appraisals, we'd come back to you and say we have to restart the process. So
We've already bonded for it. right? I
We
mean,
bonded for it. I mean, it would just delay it from this fall to next spring, which would be with appropriateness, with an appropriate time frame to use that bonding funds, in my opinion. You know, if we got 0 out of these folks or one of the smaller people, we'd come back and say we would switch our recommendation from 1 to 2, because we want to follow the staff's recommendation is follow the original financing plan, which would be to capture as much of that assessed value as possible. If we get all but 2% of it, we'd probably recommend moving forward. If we get 2% of it, we'd recommend pausing in 45 or 60 days and we'd flip our thing. And any of that design money, again, our scope isn't changing. This is just a technical 429 process element. So in 45 days, whatever we've done in our design is not throwaway scope. Our scope isn't changing. And there's certain scenarios in 429 where you have to watch that, right? Like Appaloosa Woods, the project value is 100,000 and our assessments are 100,000. You have to be able to, any expenditures after that date are only the eligible ones. But at $6 million, we're in an okay situation to keep advancing us and negotiating that waiver, in my opinion.
So it makes sense to me to go with option 1 then and to have you said a 45-day time frame on it.
Yeah, we can maybe, I don't know who's got an agenda, you can direct us to bring back an update with agreements by that meeting, or we would then recommend 2. We'd come back and pause the project and recommend 2.
May 25th would likely be close to.
I think that
the
preserves
11th,
our
30
options.
days, so May 25th would be the closest council meeting.
Is that fair? Well, we'd push it before that. Yeah, I mean, that's just the deadline. We're gonna bring it back as soon as possible.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I don't know what the other members feel.
yeah, I agree.
You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for option 1 with a 45-day stipulation.
Second.
All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay, vote by saying nay. If you're opposed.
I said yay.
No, I know.
Okay.
I screwed that up. Motion carries 4-0. 10D, in here, when we hired the city admin, we had her we had said that there's gonna be a six-month reevaluation, which came up in April. It says on here we have 2 options. One is to always have the annual performance date be April 14th and also at the end of the year. But a third option would be if we wanted more than one performance evaluation, we could have it be, I guess, June and December, or we can say monthly. I guess that there are infinite options.
Every day.
But on the,
I would say that we probably need to amend the contract. If we're gonna do that.
yeah, we'd have to amend the contract, but it lists 2 options. They're like infinite options, but specific to today, we could either somebody could suggest a different option. My thoughts are that, I'm gonna make a motion that we select option 2, since it was the 6-month trial, if you will, was a trial and was not intended to be put forth as every April we have an annual review. So I'll make a motion that we select option 2.
Second.
Any discussion? All those for vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. On to 10B. There's a public comment opportunity. Is there anybody eager to speak here or online?
Mayor and council, we do have a few folks online. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 or click raise your hand. If you'd like to speak on new business or anything else remaining on the agenda.
10A item, the Ravinia surety request. Does anybody want a presentation?
I'd like to know what our current ordinance is. They're asking for deviation from what our current ordinance is, correct?
Yeah, and the development
It's in the
contract.
development contract.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just for the record, I want a presentation too.
okay. Let's go for it.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. We received a request from Lennar for a letter of credit reduction. They currently have, we've reduced it to to the amounts that you see in the letter. They have requested further reduction. They're requesting further reduction to an amount that they believe can reasonably cover the remaining construction obligations. And it's been reviewed by staff. Kevin has been working on this along with the city attorney over the last several months. There's been a lot of discussion on this. Lennar has made headway on a variety of their punch list items. But this would only be for phases 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8.
Correct, and the work that they did was development contract work, not necessarily field work. So most of the remaining items are field work that are anticipated to be done in spring. And then one note I'll say is this just gets us to the warranty period. We're not even in the warranty period. So once this gets reduced, then it's replaced with the warranty bond, which generally lasts 2 years. There's some variability in what is covered there per the development contract. So the developer's trying to push these through into warranty. They've done a lot of work over the last quarter of a year, 3-4 months. All the work that they could do at the desktop or follow through as-built record plan information. The remaining items are really the field work. So in these areas, some of the trail concerns that were brought up, that's in the area, that's what the money is being retained for. There's various components out there, but I know one of the primary concerns that's been brought up at council has been the trail condition, and that's one of the primary items here that are covered in these phases.
So there are at least 3 trail issues that I'm aware of. So on Gleason, there's a bunch of willows that have created heaves that have been obliterated by snow equipment from the HOA. So I'm thinking those might even need to get replaced in whole and some herbicide put down under the trail. That's in a couple different locations. Gleason is one of them. Then there's the connection that goes back off of Gleason. There's also sunken areas where water collects from the sprinklers and just sits as puddles permanently whenever irrigation is active. And then along the, I forget the name of the road, the trail that goes through the wetlands that connects from Steeple, there had been a lot of silt fence and things left behind. I'm not sure if that's all been cleared out yet.
If you're talking Steeple Lupine area, that's actually 5th and 10th, so that's not even in this conversation.
That's not part of
But
this?
Yeah, so, I mean, our team, we rely on our professional engineering team to manage all this, and so those are the type of things that still have to be rectified before we put it into warranty, so those are great examples. Those specific ones aren't part of this, so we would still be holding letter of credits per the contract documents for those additions. So this is where they've advanced far enough for consideration. There's some uniqueness here due to the timeline that these have been open. Some of these started in 2013, I believe. So, and the developments, I think, got less than 5 houses to build. So there's varying factors. We've worked with the city attorney to follow the contract documents, to follow the process. We're comfortable that this amount for this situation protects those interests. And then again, once those are done, we would replace it with warranty bonds for the warranty period. So if the trails in a year were to fail, we would have the warranty bond protection against that.
My only concern is that if we give them this relief, they have less motivation to actually complete the work that's outstanding, and it may go another year or 2 before they get back to it.
And we would have, so that's something that as staff we've talked about, kind of our approach to our historical approach is we anticipate developers would want to be incentivized to address this. We've had conversations of, do we reach out and prod them more? So we were kind of making some incremental changes to maybe be more of a prodder and poker than just wait for them to make the request. So that's something that we'll have conversations ongoing. I think that this recommendation is solid for everything I've heard. I would support this, but I think they're motivated.
How did we get to the current levels of LLC? Was that based on on staff's judgment?
Yes, staff is administratively allowed to reduce it. That's based on the engineering planning.
Are they based on requests? They come to you
Yes,
for a
they
request
request it,
reduction?
yes, yep, they request it.
So why is this coming before council and not handled by staff?
Because there's a floor that we technically can't administratively release. So it's a little bit of a unique scenario, like I was trying to explain, of the long time that we've been dealing with it and the amount of work.
Yeah.
The homes that have been completed, so the risk goes down when the homes are completed to damaging the road,
So what's the floor at?
25%
25%
of the original letter of credit for public
is this the low as you can go?
that we can release.
Yeah.
Per the contract documents. So this is going below that threshold.
Okay, so it's 25% of the original value
Of the original letter of credit per edition, yeah.
is the bottom you can go.
To follow the compliance of the development contract.
Yeah. So the current letter of credit amounts are related to that 25%. This is a request to go below that.
So can you explain the math on one of these, on how you get to the 25% number? Because if I look at 6 is at 10% of the original LLC and for 6.
I can. We're doing a better job paying attention to the contract documents than we did in 2014.
So in some cases, we've gone well below.
That hit, in the older letter of credits, we may have gone below 25% inadvertently. We do not do that anymore.
I guess I would say, if they're planning on doing the work in the spring, let's wait for them to do the work and then have this conversation and reduce it because it's done. And try to ensure they actually have the incentives that we intended for them to have to complete the work. That'd be my position. So that would be option 3, I guess.
I'd be inclined to agree with you based on the history we've had with the developer and issues we've raised that haven't been addressed or appear to haven't been addressed. So at the options that are presented, I would move to decline the request.
We have, just note for council, we have had significant discussion with the city attorney on that language in the development contract that states to an amount reasonably necessary to cover the construction. So that's an area where he felt comfortable going below that because of the language in there related to that. Would that be fair, Kevin?
In the status of the development, yes. So, I mean,
If I'm reading it right, I guess this is Lennar's letter, not anything from our attorney. But provide authority doesn't mean you're obligated or required to reduce. Is that correct? Do I
Say that
understand that
again?
correctly?
Say that again?
So I'm looking at the letter, second paragraph. The terms of the respective development contracts for each phase provide authority for the city engineer to reduce letters of credit to an amount reasonably necessary to cover the remaining construction obligations. But providing authority doesn't impute a duty to execute that authority. Sounds like we would have discretion in
Yeah.
allowing that to happen or not happen.
I'm not sure. I think what I'm hearing you ask,
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm not sure that their letter pulls all of the information from the DA, so I was gonna look to see if I could pull that for us real quick.
I think the concern I'm hearing is if we do this reduction, we're disincentivizing them to complete the work, and we want them to complete the work, right? That's the concern I'm hearing. I feel very comfortable recommending reducing to this and saying and giving staff the direction to say, if they don't complete the work within 90 days, go after the surety or go after the surety process and start, we have that ability at any point, we just have to follow the contract. So I would, potentially a recommendation to you is give us 90 days, or whatever your discretion would be, to, if they don't comply or show advancement, to start, have us work with the attorney to start that, and then basically take over, and then we would finish the work.
How long would that take? If we went down that road, when would the work be done?
There's not a significant amount of work. I don't know that for sure. I would think we may be able to squeeze it in this fall, but it would definitely be by the first thing next spring would be the absolute latest. I don't know the timelines off the top of my head. I know I could feel comfortable saying by spring of next year it could be addressed. That would still be that alternative recommendation would be better than declining it from staff's position. And I completely understand the urgency to get it done. Just working through the contract mechanisms, I would just encourage that consideration.
I guess I would be comfortable going down that road without decreasing the surety and say, if it's not done in 90 days, we're gonna just do the work. Hopefully they can get it done by June and everybody wins. They can get their surety back within 60 days of when they wanted it back, and we get the work completed. Nobody's waiting until next spring to get it done. I'm not confident that the work will actually get done based on past projects that the builder has communicated to the residents that haven't happened on schedule. Sidewalk replacements and other projects, so.
Isn't Kevin saying if they don't, so what if they don't do it? We have the money in the form of a bond to go ahead and do it ourselves.
Yes, but he's also saying that that wouldn't be done until potentially a year from now. Whereas if the builder is motivated, presumably they have a more efficient and fast way of getting the work done, and they could get it done this spring like they're saying they will.
Is that accurate then?
Yeah, and I think the timeline between the fall and the spring, I just don't know the mechanisms of, we can shorten up and say 60 days because we're in April, right? If they don't complete the work in 60 days, we then would have to, my understanding is we'd have to notify them and say, your work is not being completed, please follow the contract. There's some way to rectify that scenario, right, where we're not satisfied they're going fast enough. We'd have to then implement at 60 days that process. I'm not familiar enough with how fast that process can happen. I think it's possible that it could happen late in the year, but I would be comfortable saying that by spring we would have that in place. What that means is we basically chase the surety, convert the surety to cash, then we'd bid out the project ourselves and use that money to pay for it. The $260,000 we believe would protect us against that. I would think it's possible it could be done in the fall under that scenario. I would feel comfortable saying for sure in the spring, barring some unknown legal battle. My expectation is they get this done right away, but I know that it's been 12 years, or maybe I'm exaggerating there, but they have done a ton of work since Thanksgiving to now that has been different, that hasn't been done in the last 10 years. So I do think they're motivated to wrap these up. There's no guarantee in that, I'm just kind of sharing what we're seeing on the front line. So, again, what's recommended, just lowering it. Maybe a middle ground is to give us some guidance on if the work's not done, we can send a letter back, response back, and say if the work, we can push that aggressively as much as the contract allows. I would then fall back on that as an alternative recommendation if you wanted some sort of middle ground versus straight declining.
And I would note, in talking to the city attorney today, he did recommend that we do a formal amendments to the development contract with this, so that if you direct us, however you direct us to move forward, if it is to amend, or if it is to authorize that reduction, we can formalize that through an amendment to the development contract.
Couldn't we could also say, have 60 days and reduce the surety bond to $500,000 if we wanted to,
You
right?
could reduce it to another value.
Because it's at like 1.3 or 2 million now, right? It's not,
Yes, it's roughly $1 million, from the top of my head, it's roughly $1 million letter of credit reductions, what we recommended in the initial report, yes.
do we have, do they, if, in the event that we actually have to do what they said they were gonna do, does staff time get compensated for that?
We would outsource that to our engineering team, and they would be compensated by that. So that surety would cover engineering time.
So we just make a phone call, and say, hey, this street needs to be fixed from here to here, and then that's it.
Well, we still have our own rules, so we'd probably quote them out, because a lot of these, the trail would be one individual contractor, so we'd quote out all the trail repairs, do a quote package, send them to people, execute it, depending on what it is, we could package it different ways. If it was an exceedance of $100,000 or $108,000, we'd follow our normal project policies on how we'd execute the project, but basically the surety would be converted into cash. That cash would basically cover all the expenses to rectify the development agreement.
Yeah.
I would be okay reducing the current surety by maybe $200,000 to preserve a strong incentive for them to finish it and kind of meet them halfway. But I'm not comfortable that they're gonna do what we want them to do without a significant incentive.
Remember how long it took them to move those hills?
Ah, I do.
They've had many opportunities
I know.
to right wrongs and keep things the way they originally intended. That's why I
Right.
would rather this be the carrot, because they don't listen to our stick.
You mean the opposite?
No, this be the carrot, get the job done. We're
Oh,
keeping
yeah, yeah.
Because when we put in ordinances into effect, you don't listen to them. Violation of construction hour ordinances and other things, and you go by there, you drive up 116, I mean, that's a different development, but you can see it in the development there, there's stuff everywhere, we've talked about that.
You guys wanna make a motion, one of you?
I'll move to decline to start.
Now, second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, on option 3, 4-0.
So now do you need direction? Or you're just gonna go back to them?
Do you want us to send a letter to start the plan? That would be the only additional direction.
Yeah.
We'll let them know. We'll work with the attorney to let them know on the direction from you if you want additional direction in terms of.
I would let them know we applaud their desire to get the work done in the spring. And if it's not done in the spring, we would look at pulling the surety and getting the work done by next spring ourselves.
Okay, so one more construction season, so the letter should take note of one more construction season to get it done, and, okay.
Well, no. I wouldn't say I wouldn't give them a full construction season before we start the activity, because it's already, if we do that, it probably won't actually end up happening until 2025.
So you want to be able to ensure the work gets done, so we'll work with our attorney on the timelines he thinks, and then start that process so that we can have the work completed in the spring of '24.
Right.
Item 10B, I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the feasibility report at $2,500.
Second.
Any discussion?
There's 10,000 though
It's-
also.
Yeah, it's 10,000, so 2,500 was the appraisal and 7,500 was the feasibility report.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Friendly amendment to 10,000?
Friendly amendment to 10,000.
May I ask a question to staff? So these would just be appraisals and assessments on the existing homes on that street, right?
All the benefiting properties on that street.
So would that include benefiting properties to the east that will connect?
We can talk to the appraisal about that. I don't know if you have any direction on that. I was
Yeah.
assuming it would be the ones that abutted it, like adjacent to the I think the benefit probably, there, you know, we've done where there's indirect benefits and direct benefits. If you
Yep.
want to seek that, we can certainly do that.
Because I think there's an indirect benefit to the,
There could, if you would like
Bellwether
us to
community.
get a cost for that, I mean, they generally look at the neighborhood and say direct benefit, indirect benefit. We
Yeah.
could certainly pursue that in the appraisal, and then you guys could evaluate that in the presentation.
Yeah, I think that because it's been platted, then we'd have to identify which areas are benefiting. So we can look into that.
If you want us to pursue that, that would be built into the appraisal, and they could tell us it's not gonna be benefited, then we would, I guess, chase all benefiting direct and indirect properties, if that's your direction.
well, if we go down this route too, does it impact the requests that we had from people in Bellwether to reroute construction traffic through that area? If-
It's not directly, we don't believe it's, I mean, if you were to change, if you were to allow, right now, they can't use that road for construction access without paying for an overlay.
Okay,
They've provided other accesses through acquiring property since the original agreement was done that they're planning to use. In a scenario where we catch them using it, I think we would be able to calculate a valuation of the new road and then chase them on that impact. That would be my interpretation of what we could do.
okay.
They're not planning to use it. There's been residents that have reached out and said, let them use that. We haven't changed that yet. You guys would
Yeah.
have to provide that amendment that would let them to use that, but I don't anticipate that as a policy change.
But including them in assessment as an indirect property wouldn't trigger that allowance.
I would think, we could check, I would think that they would be mutually exclusive, but
Okay.
we would take your direction and say, what should we be working on and determine that valuation.
On the Willow Larkin piece, we had properties, you know, half a mile off the road that were being,
Yeah, we looked at that. We looked at direct and indirect with that project.
yeah.
So yeah, that's a distinction here because I referenced Corcoran Trail east-west. That was more for when we had identified as a free low overlay, but the road needed more. That was what I was referencing. The council makes a great point that there is pass-through traffic. So that would be something that, and I think that 2,500 would accommodate that if we worked with the appraisal and the attorney to identify indirect properties of benefit. And they could present that as to you and if you.
Yeah, I think there would be some indirect benefit there. I just don't want it to trigger construction traffic starting to go through there.
Yeah, I would think they're mutually exclusive, but we can verify that and get that and present that information in the feasibility report and get appraisal and legal input on that.
All right, thanks.
Do any further discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 4-0. 10C,
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We are here in front of you today with a Public Works staffing reorganization update for Phase 2, a job description review and authorization to hire. So in 2021 and 2022, we had done some pieces to the Public Works Department and looking at a reorganization and are recommending bringing forward an administrative assistant position as well as in the coming months, an engineering and development superintendent position to complete that reorg, as well as with the addition of having the water supply infrastructure, we'd be looking at potentially reorging the individual departments within Public Works. And so that we anticipate doing later this year. But as we've been working on hiring, we wanted to have the crew lead and maintenance worker positions rescored since they have not been rescored in quite a few years. And we do anticipate we do further job description changes as part of that. On the dais, we have 3 job descriptions in front of you: the administrative assistant, crew lead, and maintenance worker. The crew lead retained a grade 10, the maintenance worker scored at a grade 8, and the
administrative assistant graded at grade 6. And so we would ask that council move forward with the job descriptions, noting that this was just a rescore, not related to any further action related to recruitment and retention, just a rescore as we would typically do any other process. So just a note that there'd be more to come on items related to recruitment and retention that we had talked about in February, so that more to come on that. But one other piece that we'd be looking to do is going out and filling the unfilled maintenance worker and administrative assistants. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. Just to clarify, this is an update of the job description. There's going to be more changes coming, and we'll be presenting our analysis of the recruitment intention focused on public works that you guys gave us direction on a couple months ago. So this is independent of that. So I just want that to be clear from from your expectations and understanding. There'll be more coming when we complete that analysis.
Can I ask a really dumb question?
Mm-hmm.
I see option 2 has with amendments. Where are those amendments?
You could propose amendments to.
Oh, you're saying like if we come up
council
with
would
one?
want to,
Okay,
we would I would recommend getting it rescored if there are amendments to the job description that you would like to see.
Oh,
I
okay.
would recommend getting it rescored, but we certainly.
Yeah.
get any of the job descriptions rescored.
I'll make a motion that we approve option 1.
Second.
Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
If I may ask one question, is there a timeline on that retention stuff? On when you're bringing it back? or
Present it
when-
to be incorporated into the budget, so June, July.
Okay, thanks.
And we have not determined we might need some feedback from council if there is an interest in getting some feedback from council and being part of the process. We'll be bringing forward if we want to do a subcommittee or something like that.
So
Yeah, the question is just related to that timeline. We talked about it. It's a pretty reasonable.
Yep, we wanna
Thank you.
get the ideas, the options, kind of mimic a similar process that we went through recently in the other department. And in advance of the budget, at least into the preliminary budget, so we can continue conversations if there's more detail, but
Thanks.
that would be the goal. And it's also, the goal is recruitment and retention, and we need both, so
Yep.
we need to make sure we can address those.
That's all I.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries 4-0. Is there any chance we can skip, oh, we have, is there,
Cropland?
no, we already did that. Is there, no, there is no public comment. Hackamore Road Improvements bid report.
That, we were hoping to have a report that, I don't have a lot of detail on it, that got delayed again. It's gonna be bid on the 20th, next Thursday, so we're hoping to give you some updates on that.
Oh, so we crossed that off of our, did we cross that off earlier?
think you might have.
We had
Okay.
a staff report, but we were talking about potentially having a closed session if we had bids.
Okay.
We were hoping to be able to further discuss, but without the bids.
So do we have any, so there's nothing else on our agenda?
Nope.
I have one thing to say. There's an accountability piece for elected officials, and we all are accountable to the voters who send us to elected office. And when I say I'm gonna come to this meeting, although I was late today, I come to the meeting. I don't wanna ever see some staff member of an elected official, as far as I'm concerned, in here representing them, an elected official. If you don't wanna come here, don't come here. If the president wanted to send a staff person, I would say no, because they really have no business coming here. You know, White House on down. I'm sick of the sheriff not coming. I'm sick of this guy not coming. He's done that to us. This is, of the 3 meetings, the last 2, he's not come. Limerick comes, the state reps come. I don't want to, I don't really care. I felt bad for Clara. She didn't know anything really about what Kevin would have actually talked about, although it's really frustrating and irritating to me. We don't need to spend time with people who don't bother to show up. So